You were out hanging out with rugby royalty yesterday?
I was, yeah. Brian O'Driscoll and Jamie Heaslip down at the Marion Hotel promoting Land Rover ahead of the Rugby World Cup. And it's a strange one because when Ireland have a horrific defeat, there's always way more to talk about. 4 weeks of Ireland crushing opposition in warm-up matches would be a very boring affair.
Yeah.
And so I guess you have to say thank you to Joe Schmidt and thank you to the Ireland rugby team for giving us stuff to talk about.
Content is all about the content.
It's all about the hashtag content. And it wasn't just that. I mean, there was rugby writers down there yesterday who had to dash across to the Joe Schmidt press conference, which not a lot of people were expecting to happen yesterday. He rarely does press early in the week. So he fronted up and he wanted to face the media head on, and I guess fair play to him because he obviously felt that there were a few questions to answer, and it definitely seems from the tone of pundits and respected pundits like O'Driscoll and Heaslip and from the tone of Joe Schmidt that we will see something of a second chance this weekend, or a final chance perhaps for a couple of people this weekend.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Jack Hardy's going to start and it looks like Sexton's going to be on the bench, and Sexton's going to have like 20 minutes, 25 minutes of game time. So there's also, he was talking about the hooker position a good bit, and he came back to Best a couple of times in the conversation. One was like, that's all external noise, there's no internal noise around, when he was asked about Rory Best not being captain. But then later on he did say there's 4 hookers, they're all driving each other on, there's only 3 spots. And I don't know, it's like the one that Rory would be interested in was the internal noise. And I was like, not very plain speaking, I don't think. All a little bit clouded, and maybe that the clarity of communication is much better when he's in a room telling people your place is on the line here.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously you're not going to say that to the media. So
yeah, well, like Best was supposed to be at a media event today, and that's been postponed for a couple of weeks due to an increased training workload. So I presume that comes from the internal noise that he's talking about, that he will have to personally ramp it up quite a bit this week, and that isn't a surprise to anybody.
Yeah, but isn't today their day off anyway? Isn't it a day off? Like
I don't recall. I don't think they train too often on Wednesdays. All right,
that's maybe there's like a sudden.
That could also be it as well, for sure. It does seem that your theory yesterday of just bringing Rory Best as a captain but not as your starting hooker is going to be veering towards reality soon. That's what I got from Schmidt's quotes yesterday, that he's certainly considering that prospect.
So Peter Mahoney's going to captain the team this weekend, apparently. Think about that though, you need another captain, right, for the big games. And so, is somebody your captain just for the big games? Or are they then your Ireland captain?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, you would have thought that your Ireland captain would be your captain for your big games.
You are.
There shouldn't be any difference there.
So, you're like a vice captain. You're demoting Rory Best to vice captain, essentially, because Peter Mahoney is then going to be your captain when the World Cup kicks off against Scotland and we have Scannell starting at hooker.
Well, that would be, yeah, like Peter O'Mahony would be your de facto captain, but his title would be vice captain, or...
No, the other way around.
Well, Rory Best would still be captain of the Ireland rugby team.
Well, he's not playing.
He's not going to get stripped.
Who's taking the toss?
That's what I'm saying. He's de facto captain.
He's not though.
Like, I mean, it's...
He's de facto, not the captain.
Yeah.
Exactly de facto. That is de facto.
Johnny Sexton, Peter O'Mahony, Rory Best, Robbie Henshaw perhaps, Rob Kearney, they've all been named as people within this leadership group. And if we keep banging on about the fact, the term leadership group, as we have done over the last couple of years, and this is where it really happens. This is where the leadership group is supposed to be a group, and where they're supposed to actually have an impact on that front. So it shouldn't make too much of a difference. Now, how does Peter O'Mahony say differ from Rory Best in terms of his on-field leadership? You would say not too much. He's a fantastic leader. The only way we can actually really appreciate it when we're sitting at home watching this is how they communicate with the referee, and maybe there's a bit of a difference there. There's certainly a big difference between how, say, Rory Best and Johnny Sexton would communicate with the referee, but between Rory Best and Peter O'Mahony, I wouldn't say there's too much of a difference, and I would say O'Mahony would be, when he wants to be a cool head, because he knows he needs to be fairly relaxed when it comes to talking to the ref.
So, in truth, though, it would be the stripping of Rory Best of the captaincy, because he's not going to play in the big games, and your Ireland captain is your Ireland captain.
Is he going to be on a bench?
No.
Because Sean Cronin's a better impact sub. Well, let's like, if he was on the bench, if he was coming off the bench, do you change the captain if Peter O'Mahony is starting?
Because you need an on-field captain.
I can't see the Ireland camp coming out and saying Rory Best is no longer Ireland captain. It will be done without a formal announcement.
Yeah, it'll be like the Jim Gavin video to Dublin TV where it was like, oh, by the way, Dermot Connolly's back playing.
Or like basically retiring Bernard Brogan after the Tyrone game this year.
What did he say?
Well, no, he didn't say anything. It was just in practice. It was like that is very good chance that is his last ever Dublin game.
Yeah, and get some reaction here. There was a lot of other people doing media as well. We're bringing Joe Schmidt first. Here he is, obviously talking about the fallout from the England game.
To be honest, if there is external noise of that nature, there's certainly no internal noise of that nature. So probably for Rory, it's that internal noise that is most relevant to him, because that's where the decisions are going to be made. And at this stage, there are no decisions that are being made in that direction. So you're on the back of, there are guys who are going to get an opportunity this weekend, and if they perform better than any other player that played last weekend, then there's always a contest, and you've got to keep that contest live. And I think we've seen that in other teams. You saw an All Black team get beaten 47-26, come out and win 36-0 with a number of changes, where established players were left out and new, fresh players came in and put them under pressure.
Are they the same scenario? I mean, you'd like to think that would be a great parallel for us to suddenly go, it was just us, that one blip, except we're coming off being exposed by Wales, being exposed by England, being exposed by England again, being a bit exposed by Saracens in that second half in the Champions Cup final.
Well, what were the All Blacks coming off? They were coming off going up to the Northern Hemisphere and getting beaten by Ireland. Like, I know it's a much longer gap. It's almost 12 months. You can't compare the end of the Six Nations with the end of last year, but it's not a million miles apart. I'm not going to lie. When I heard that line yesterday, and when I've heard that line being peddled all week, it's like, it's not the most outrageous comparison to make. Like, on the Saracens thing, I think that's a very useful thing to point to, because one of the other things that we've been talking about over the last couple of months is to what extent did Joe Schmidt care about the Six Nations? To what extent was it just a preparation guise before going into the World Cup? Like, did he really care about a competition with which he won the Grand Slam in the previous year? And you could make a case that perhaps he didn't, and perhaps there is this sort of Trojan horse situation. But did Leinster not want to win the Champions Cup?
100%.
100% they went to win that game. And they, as you said, they got exposed at times in that final. But then again, I mean, you could look at the first half of that game and make cases why Leinster should have been in a better position in that final. Ultimately, Saracens were the dominant team, and really with two teams going hammer and tongs at it, Saracens, the English players, were better than the Irish players on that day. And I think that is a fair comparison to make. So, I don't know, I think that there is multiple different ways that you can look at this, but I certainly bought into the kind of New Zealand comparison a little bit this week, that really you can change things around very, very quickly at this point of the year.
There's massive amounts of changes that you can make. Different players will come in who weren't in that game. Like, one of them is James Ryan. Let's hear from James Ryan. We can talk a bit more about that afterwards. Here he is talking about the level of improvement needed from the Irish team this week.
I think they're among the two biggest areas that we need to improve on from the weekend. You know, defensively, as Joe probably pointed out, we missed 34 tackles. We missed a lot in the first half. So, you know, that's an easy fix if we've got the right mindset. And then obviously with the line out, it's been a strength for us in the past. It definitely wasn't the weekend. So, you know, from a forward perspective, a big focus this week has been on getting that right, and it's never down to one person. You know, sometimes what looks like an overthrow, when you look much closer, it's because, you know, the lift isn't right, or the movement isn't what it needs to be or has been that week. So it's our process right across the board in that regard. So yeah, as I said, it's been a big focus this week on kind of sharpening that up.
Was there an attempt by the players involved to explain what happened?
After the game, to be honest, I think I wasn't there, but after the game I think lads were just you know, obviously quite low, a bit shocked as well, I think. So it probably wasn't the right time there to try explain, but you know, we've done a lot of work at looking at it today and yesterday, and there's a lot of lessons there. Some of them I just mentioned, so hopefully we can learn from that this week. Yeah,
I think key little bit there that he wasn't there. A lot of people weren't there. They split up the two camps, the ones who were going to England and the ones who came back here for a few days R&R after Portugal. So like, if you're looking for reasons why this isn't all doom and gloom, and it's pretty easy to make it doom and gloom, primarily are significant number of changes to our first team on the day of the biggest game, whenever the biggest game comes. If that biggest game is obviously the first game up against Scotland, and then hopefully there are a couple of bigger games than that still to come. Because if we win that, you would hope that we'll be able to beat Japan. I would take it as an article of faith that if we beat Scotland, we'll be good enough to beat Japan. If we don't beat Scotland, then suddenly that Japan game is like this pivotal moment in Joe Schmidt's legacy for Ireland.
What are we talking, though, when it comes to significant changes? Like, I guess 4 or 5 changes is significant.
Absolutely,
it is, and especially when you're looking at the biggest failing of Ireland last week being the line out, and you've got your first choice second row to come in.
Yeah, I don't think it's just the line out. I think it's the physicality. It's not being able to. It's being blown off tackled. It's a full systems failure, and that includes defence off scrum, defence off line out, your own line outs, your defence of their lineouts, like everything fell apart.
But then on the flip side of that, even if you just focus on the line out for a moment, you've got your first choice, we thought it was our first choice, back row starting. Getting blown off tackles with your first choice back row starting is not great. Like, if we wanted to build a situation where depth was going to become a real thing for Ireland, then nobody that was on the pitch last day should really be getting blown off tackles. You might be able to make an excuse for somebody like Ross Byrne, who was kind of really thrown into a pressure cooker situation.
The only, again, and this will look like it's clutching at straws from people, but like, you're just trying to put the case together for what's gone on, is that they didn't train for this game. They didn't seem to game plan for this game to try and win this game. They trained because they're in the middle of a block of intense physical training where they didn't do that much skills work was one of the things that somebody from the camp said about Portugal. It was mostly physical stuff. So at the end of a week of training, they play a game. It's a challenge in that sense. And you don't have your full squad over there. So you've already diminished the sense of occasion for a lot of people by going, well, this is our World Cup squad and 15 of them have gone home, or 12 of them have gone home, whatever it is. Like, that lowers the psychological preparedness straight off the bat. And then everybody's absolutely exhausted from the physical training. So, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see. That would be the only thing that you could hold your hat on, or hang your hat on at this point and say, "I know, look, it's okay. You can see there's a method to this madness."
Yeah, like maybe that's the case. Maybe it's the case that Joe Schmidt in camp at the moment is like, we're actually totally fine. It doesn't really matter. It really just does not matter. But then why would he come out and do the media himself yesterday?
Because the noise is so big. Like it is absolutely reaching overwhelming point of critical mass.
What if the noise doesn't matter to him? If he fully believes that everybody's wrong, that the tanking they got was absolutely completely irrelevant, then the noise by extension is irrelevant, and I don't see the issue in doing it because everybody inside the camp would be on the same page.
Fewer people support the team, fewer people come to the game, fewer people are talking about it, fewer people are actually... You want the fans on side. Like, you want the country to think we have a chance. You do. You need the... Whatever amount of people are going to Japan, you want them to be loud and vociferous and fully behind the team to believe, yeah, you're the right person for the job. And also, people are questioning him. So, why come and do the media to answer to, like, you're getting pissed off people questioning you when you're like, hang on a second, I'm the one who delivered the Grand Slam. I did the 2 European Cups with Leinster. I did the Championship and the Grand Slam. Like, you've never had it as good as I've made it for you. And now you're all going, oh, you have a clue what you're doing. You got whooped by the... Of course you're going to come out and face that down. Especially if you have a plan.
Yeah, I guess you've kind of turned that 180 and looked at it from the entire other side. My point is that the concern is very real, that everything that's being written in the newspaper is not just noise. The concerns are real, the problems are real. The possibility of Ireland having a very, very poor World Cup is a very real possibility. That's all I'm saying here, and I think that him coming out to do the press conference yesterday was a fantastic show of defiance and fair play to him, but it suggests that part of him believes that the reality of these problems are also a reality in his head.
All right, we're going to come back to this. Obviously, there's plenty more time for us to get concerned about Ireland's Rugby World Cup exploits. We're going to talk to Andy Mitten about Manchester United in just a minute.